Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dreamland XR Digital Speaker Series. This is episode 2, and it is a pleasure to have you here with us. My name is Alex Milland, and I have the pleasure of being the host and moderator for today's discussion. Real quick, if you're watching this for the first time and you're not already subscribed, please take a minute to subscribe to the channel, like on the video, and get yourselves ready to leave some comments because we're about to have a very engaging discussion, and we would love to get some input from the community. The goal of this whole series really is to kind of engage. Well, really, it's directly to engage with XR's brightest thinkers and leaders, and we're here to highlight some of the efforts and innovations that are being done that are driving the XR industry forward. So, joining me today for a topic of discussion surrounding virtual events, concerts, and conventions and comedy clubs. We're going to be talking about the idea of recreational events and attending events and conventions and all of that using virtual space. And joining me today for this discussion, I have Kyle Render, the CEO of the Failed to Render Comedy Club. Kyle, how are you?
Hey, I'm great, Alex. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We have Celeste Lear. She's a VR artist, a 3D modeler, and is currently a DJ in the Wave platform. So thank you for joining us, Celeste.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Of course. Speaking of the Wave, we have Finn Staber. He is the co-founder of the Wave, CTO of the Wave, and also a founder of Chicken Waffle, and has been working a lot on VR events. So thank you so much, Finn, for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We also have in tow Ollie Rinkin. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The CEO and the creative director of Pansensory Interactive, and one of the guys behind the Lost Horizons Festival. So thanks for joining us, Ollie.
Pleasure to be here, Alex. Thanks.
And last but certainly not least, Trisha Costello, the CEO and founder of Fresh Water Experiences in Vegas. Thanks for joining us, Trisha.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I thought to get started today, we would kind of take a look at the state of virtual events before the current iteration of virtual reality. I know when we talk XR, we're talking about virtual reality, augmented reality, but certainly VR events were happening before people had headsets in their homes. So I wanted to talk about maybe how people were pulling off virtual events and in what ways people were participating in those. Maybe Trisha can start us with this.
I mean, virtual events, so we focus completely on live events. So trade shows, exhibits like Mobile World Congress, where people come in and we have different activations. And we bring the headsets into those activations and AR and HoloLens into the activation. So, I mean, I've done like 10,000, our company's done 10,000 events since we started. Honestly, we really just weren't doing virtual events. So, it was more like activations that we were doing and brand moments with technology while it's a live and physical event. So it's definitely changed for us.
Ollie, do you have any perspective of the state of virtual events before the current iteration of virtual reality?
To be honest, like Trisha, my interest, I come at this from a couple of different angles. VR Jam has the name VR in it, so probably gives you a clue that we're mostly interested in virtual reality events. And we've been sort of exploring hybridizing live events into virtual reality for the last 3 years or so. And then my other sort of angle on this is as a VR creator and an attendee and sort of exhibitor at conferences and festivals, has been about how to virtualize virtual reality events and festivals, initially with the impetus being to reduce the carbon footprint and improve accessibility and diversity of the audiences. But actually, obviously, since the COVID-19 pandemic kicked in, that's sort of taken on a whole new imperative. But yeah, again, I don't have a lot of insight into what was going on in virtual events before VR.
I don't think that is surprising actually to a lot of people, because virtual reality is immersive in a way and captivating in a way that digital platforms just really haven't been until it's come around. And it kind of leads me into my next question, where I really want to talk about, like, how has immersive tech kind of transformed that landscape. And in your opinions, is virtual reality pivotal in virtual event attendance, or do you think it can be fulfilling without it? Kyle, I know that you've recently started a virtual comedy club. What do you think?
Well, I mean, with the virtual interface, the way it is in alt space is a lot of people mute the entire audience. And the first thing I wanted was to unmute everybody. We need to feel the energy in the room to get the real feeling of a comedy club. So we have to have moderators as well. And that's jobs of people that we're paying as well on top of that. So we've literally created an economical system where we're bringing in donations, paying out our comedians, and also paying the bouncers and the moderators. So it's taken a turn, and it's almost like the real thing. I like to call it 75% reality.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that virtual reality is pivotal in experiencing things like this?
Absolutely. The only really thing we're missing is more face movements, more body language. But again, it really comes down to that 25%, and that's just going to be the tech. A couple more years roll out, and it's going to be a lot more immersive than it is right now.
Mm-hmm. Celeste, you are a performer in the Wave, and you've been doing some DJ sets in virtual reality. Am I correct?
Yes, I have. It's really exciting, and part of the fun, let's all admit, is the immersive, the 360 surround environments. And so as the producers of these events kind of intend for the experience for the user and the viewer to be immersive and all around, it's definitely you're limited when you come in desktop mode, but it's still amazing, still fun. It's just the majority of my friends are still on desktop mode coming into a lot of these events that the technology is still out of reach for a lot of people. So we have to keep that in mind and still make it accessible, I think.
Yeah. Do you think that people are able to have a fulfilling experience without the use of immersive technology joining on a desktop?
Yes, I would say so, because the visuals and of course the music is still stunning. The visuals are stunning in so many of the events that I go to, and my goal is to make it as fun and colorful and visually enticing as possible. But desktop, you still get quite a lot. It's still fun. You can still interact if you have a headset with a mic on it. But I think more and more people are going to start buying headsets when they realize what is going on and how next level it is.
Mm-hmm. I think that's true. I had the pleasure of joining Kyle's comedy club one night, and I heard a lot of stories while I was in there about people who had not had exposure to VR until something like this came along, until they had a reason to go to an event in virtual space, and then they put on the headset, and it was kind of a done deal. Finn, I even saw you perform that night, didn't I?
Oh yeah, that was my first time doing stand-up comedy. It kind of turned into a tech talk, As a nerd that I am, I've spoken at a lot of events, doing deep dives or workshops or technical kind of overviews about tools and the new technology. My head's been in this, and thinking about the lineage of the event space. When I was making streaming content and POS, like alcohol sales apps and stuff for Bonnaroo and ACL and these different big organizations that are doing these big events, and then seeing that kind of shift into like working with Trisha, working with Kyle on Failed to Render on these virtual events. I was, like you had mentioned, I was the original CTO and co-founder of Wave, and my co-founder's visions were to build this platform, a space for really revolutionizing the music industry, and typically my role coming into like working with Trisha and working with Kyle, working with other teams, and Chicken Waffle as a whole is a content developer. So we do kind of nail down the tech behind it, stand up the needs, and then let those be the verticals that we approach. And it's interesting because your question on how is the desktop or the mobile streaming experience stand up to being in there and being immersed. And a big focus of ours this year has been WebXR. So we've been doubling down, doing a lot of development in cross-platform immersive spaces that you can jump into the 3D environment, voice chat, and have everything as a 3D avatar from your phone, and your accelerometer is doing the head movement, or from your mouse and keyboard, or from your touchpad and MacBook, and or from a VR headset, or from a link off of a Quest, and there's no download required. You just click on a link and you're in the space. And I think that's where we're going as a whole, like, especially for the event space, eventually with the games as well. But games take so much of an amazing feat to accomplish. Is you don't need it just to work. You need it to work and get progressively harder for the next 3 hours. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Versus an event space needs to look great, work, and stand up and be a social space. And so you can actually, with a much less feature-rich product, you can have a real event. And it's been interesting developing that content, and also finding the things that are more important, because if you're hosting a real event in real space, I'm sure Trisha can attest, there's all kinds of requirements and needs and bottlenecks and things that need to be happening before the event happens. And for a digital event, it's completely different. Watching Kyle's process every week, getting ready for his comedy shows, and working with the presenters, and working with the community, and working with the moderators so that they can have a live audience. It's a new generation of events. It really is. It's a new era.
Mm-hmm. Ollie, so you were in event space, or I know Trisha was in event space before, but Ollie, you've been in event space as well. Like you said, you had experience with events that wasn't exactly digital, but that's not so much the case anymore, right? Like now, the landscape is starting to change. In what ways have things kind of pivoted for you, and what has been the focus for you guys lately?
Yeah, and if it's all right, I wouldn't mind actually just touching on your previous question just
Please.
briefly, because for me, the biggest revelation of Lost Horizon was just how compelling the experience can be for a desktop user. So we built this event in the Sansar platform, which is it's a VR first platform, but it runs on PC, desktop, and we managed to get a smartphone app out just in time before the event came out, but it's not as fully featured, obviously. But as a VR first platform, and I've been working in VR for several years, so I had a very good idea of how compelling the experience was likely to be for people in VR, how it would feel like you were actually in a festival, and you were able to have these sort of natural, random human interactions with people. But what absolutely blew me away was just how compelling and how convincing it was, even on a desktop mode, that you were actually there. So my girlfriend was in the other room, and she didn't have access to a VR headset. So she was just using desktop mode. And then we had friends from around the world that had all tuned in. And so I switched to desktop mode, and we actually ended up over the course of a couple of hours dancing with friends around the world. Really felt like we were on a dance floor together, listening to the same music, dancing, even though we obviously we weren't represented by avatars that were dancing as badly as we were in reality. Because we had each taken the time to customize our avatars, and because we'd chosen the set of dance moves that we kind of enabled our avatars to have, you could project that personality of each of your friends onto their avatar, and it really felt like they were there with you. So yeah, that to me was a big revelation. And I think when you look at the attendance numbers, I think we had sort of 10,000 people attended between PC, VR, and the smartphone app, and then we had something like 4.5 million 2D streams across Facebook, Twitch, YouTube. Wow. So as much as we all want VR to be the primary way and it's obviously going to be the most compelling way that people can experience these virtual events, we're still going to be dealing with much, much bigger audience metrics on flat streaming platforms for the time being, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I haven't run out and bought a headset, and most of my customers are on the desktop version. So just, when I entered this, just how to make it as compelling as possible for as many people as possible. And I mean, Finn, nothing to download. It's like when you go to book a venue, right? You have 15 parties on the same night in Vegas. you got to make it as easy as possible. Do I go to this party, this party? How long's the taxi? So you want to make it as easy as possible. So I like to compare everything just to real life. So yeah, no app to download, link on, it works on your phone, your Mac, your PC, and be accessible for as many people as possible.
And stays virtual. And that's the cool thing, is if you build the right user experience and aesthetic, it's still a virtual event. You're still there. You have voice chat. You're nodding, or if you have emote buttons that are on your screen, you can do things that give you real presence. And you're there. I think one of the coolest things that I've experienced going to virtual events in this era is that I had a little bit of it before, because I'm a VR nerd and have been in it from the beginning. But I remember the first time playing Rec Room on a Saturday evening, and sitting there for a while talking about the game we were making, and I met some other developers from Rec Room inside of Rec Room, and we were just chatting it up and talking about kind of pains of VR development. And at the end of the night, I took my headset off. It was like 1 a.m. And I felt like I had just got home from a networking event. Like I felt like I was just somewhere social, and especially with the failed to render comedy clip shows. After you leave there, I really get the sensation of I was just at a comedy show. Like I just spent the last hour and a half laughing, and I met other people that I ended up having a conversation with afterwards, that like we just saw this funny thing together. And it was much like when you're at the bar after a comedy show and everybody kind of goes up to the bar and they're kind of chuckling about the jokes that one guy said, or that funny set that one girl did, and it's just, it's interesting to have that same social, that social experience that is good for you to have, but from during the pandemic, sitting by myself in the studio on a Saturday or something.
Kyle, you were performing stand-up comedy before setting up the Failed to Render Comedy Club in Altspace. So to you, does it feel like you're performing? Is it the same, or what's lost in the translation there?
Absolutely. I don't think there's much lost in the translation as long as I keep everybody unmuted. Like I said before, I bring in real comedians from before the pandemic. I don't take a lot of people in that I meet online. I want to get videos from them to know that, okay, we were all doing this beforehand. Not a lot gets lost in translation. I think the coolest part is everybody laughing in the room with us encourages the stream that I'm putting on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch to interact on there too. So if we have donations coming from the stream, I kind of break the reality and I start pointing at the camera and I say, shout out to Gert for giving us $10. Thanks, Gert, on Facebook. So it kind of brings those realities closer together too. Kind of like a sitcom, whenever there's like a laugh track, and that's when the people online know, oh, it was funny. They were there, it was funny. So
yeah, laughter is infectious. I've always said, like at shows and performances, I do some live music as well, but often talk, as a talking head on a panel or like a networking kind of workshop. And I've always felt like, applause at the end, that just happens whenever you're done with a talk. That just happens. But laughter to break up the silence during a talk, that's pure, and it's infectious. People enjoy to laugh and they enjoy to hear other people laugh. So I think there's something there. And much like similarly with music and concert performance, people love seeing other people dance.
Yeah, dancing is
it's infectious. The energy rubs off, and you see that even with a VR avatar. You can tell when that person's dancing. You can even tell when they're dancing poorly, and it's pretty cool, like in the wave, to see 50 people all dancing around in front of you and drawing stuff in the sky and stuff. It's especially with the tranquil visuals and stuff. It's really neat. And
Celeste, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, the dancing is infectious, and avatar dance moves can really surprise you. And the fact that they're in their PJs and their offices or living rooms. I think one of the things I could say that is a little bit lost in translation on the technical side for us DJs is the actual emulations of the hardware. So when I've worked in a couple different VR, and keep in mind, I'm like fairly new to the game, like a year and a half in, so fairly new to the game, but in this time, I have noticed that some of the built-in turntables and mixers are very subpar. So I'm kind of hoping that the developers can work together and kind of cross-pollinate with companies like Tribe. XR is one of my favorites that I DJ in, and they're working with Pioneer, the hardware developers, on the emulations of the software. So we're getting a really pretty darn accurate representation of old school CDJs, like real life CDJs in a Nexus 900. It's pretty incredible.
So your avatar is scratching?
You don't scratch so much in that program. That's still, it's more you hit play and you can sync and you can beat match. It works the same. I don't scratch as much. I'm sure there's people that do it more than I do. There's still a few little snafus that they're ironing out, but considering the length that they've come, and I'm hoping that programs like Wave can also adopt the same software, and I'm not sure how technically that would work, but I'm sure there's a way. If you could get Tribe or something like sorry, what are the other ones? Are Vinyl Reality or Reality Decks, for us DJs to start to use, and some kind of a format for us to have our music accessible. I know Beatport is working with Tribe right now to make all their entire library on a subscriber basis, so that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I've actually seen people talking about they learned how to DJ for real by using Tribe. I thought that was pretty awesome because they're actually getting hands-on experience with a very expensive piece of hardware that usually you kind of need to be pro level DJ or a rich kid to afford.
It's $6,000 It's $6,000 hardware, so you're really getting a bargain for the $20.
So yeah, in Lost Horizon, we had a mixture of DJs and bands, and obviously we're a long way away from musicians being able to play an instrument with a VR headset on, and especially to have their performance sort of transmitted in a meaningful way into VR. We're also working on putting together a heavy metal festival at the moment, and the same thing is going to apply, where there's no way you're going to be able to track the hands of a drummer or a guitarist playing a solo to a degree that their avatar could represent them accurately. So we end up using a lot of video footage, and we basically film the musicians, or either individually or together as a band, and then we can create holograms out of those in VR. So you don't get the ability for them to sort of have that live interaction with the audience, but it's quite amazing. Excuse me. It's quite amazing how much just the fact that the audience is live watching a pre-recorded performance gives you that sense of it being a live performance and a live event.
So the audience is an avatar, and the performers are sometimes avatars too, or no?
Yeah, we did a mix. So certain DJs appeared as avatars, whereas others were pre-recorded on green screen. And by having them pre-recorded on green screen, that meant that we could also kind of multiplex it into the visuals that get projected up on the screens. So in the gas tower stage at Lost Horizon, there's a giant octagon of 8 screens. So we split a 4K video stream up into a 9 grid cell, kind of like a Zoom call. And 8 of those cells are the visuals that appear on the screens, and then the 9th is the DJ on green screen. So you've got Carl Cox playing there, and a synchronized visual display appearing separately on 8 different screens.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to elaborate a little bit on kind of what we were talking about with like the reciprocity of energy when in these events. In that kind of situation, like you said, when you're recording it, there really isn't that opportunity for that exchange of energy that like Celeste and Kyle were talking about. But as someone who has attended events like this, I've noticed that there is it's like as far as the expression of someone who is attending to reciprocate energy that I'm getting from a performer, I personally feel like it's there is something missing. Like I'm not sure that just us laughing into microphones alone for myself is enough to like reciprocate that space, because like if you have a whole room of people in alt space that all have their microphones on, like that platform, I don't think it was built to do that. Like all those voices coming in simultaneously kind of becomes like a garbled thing, and I'm wondering if we're going to find new ways to express feelings of gratitude and approval when attending these virtual events, because like, let's say I'm at a comedy club, my fiance is downstairs trying to watch This Is Us, and every 10 minutes I'm being requested to shout at the top of my lungs up here. You know what I mean? And I want to reciprocate that energy, but for me, it's not an appropriate space to be shouting and hooting and hollering and all that. So does anyone have any ideas as to like maybe some ways that we could see reciprocity or approval or gratitude manifesting?
I see alt space doing some. I'm not a fan. I don't not like it, but I do think that it has somewhere to go. But it is interesting. It allows you to throw up a bunch of emojis, and this other experience that we've been building out for WebXR allows you to pop up an emoji and like punch it and knock an emoji across the room and stuff. But still, those are. I do feel like there's something that hasn't been done. Like an emoji is like a representation of something from messages back and forth,
Right.
Text messages back and forth. So I think that there's something there that it will evolve that says I'm in this space. I can do something visually that cheers. Actually in the new Oculus venues, if you've been paying attention to that, it's pretty interesting. Different things that you do with your thumbs and your hands cause your face to emoji in different points. So you can, finger guns, thumbs up, thumbs down is actually, one thumb up, one thumb down is actually interesting because you kind of Jim Carrey your face, and it's, I think more of that is going to kind of evolve as we get more of this going, you know what I mean?
In the comedy club, what I'm looking forward to is actually having a microphone we can hold that's not built by AltSpace. Holding drinks and putting the drinks up to one another and cheersing one another, and goes clink, or you feel like a little vibration, or you take your pound and you pound somebody from the audience, or you high five them. I think that's the next step to make me feel a lot more immersed inside of my space, at the very least.
Well, like
being able to invite people, especially people for the first time, into your space, into your new atmosphere where they're exploring, connecting for the first time with one another.
I think
that some of the leaders in the field should be vocal about personal accountability. And when I say that, I mean, because I've had situations where I'm talking to someone as an avatar and they'll just walk away. And I think that it's happened. I mean, it might have happened to you. Maybe I was just being boring, but they walked away. And I was kind of like, well, whoa, that's so rude. And then I feel like that accountability where we are with each other, we need to be present with each other, and we need to, yeah, absolutely.
Setting the rules, like having a guideline or something.
Yeah, like some ethics. It should just go without saying, but I think that people are becoming increasingly detached. And I think that's something that is going to come up, and it's a philosophical topic too. We can't become too inhuman with each other. We have to keep a level of humanism and real connection, because we're all in there. These are emotions, even though we can't see each other's facial expressions or hands expressions like we're used to. We're entering into totally uncharted territory. It's really crazy and interesting. And
there's something there about the theme of the user experience, and it's kind of one of those trickle down effects of like the the purpose for this experience from the creator's point all the way down to the way people are using it. You see it absorbed and utilized in completely different ways. Like you see Rec Room and VR chat have very similar functionality, but the user experience is completely different, and the social experience is completely different. People, or if you've ever jumped on a GTA Online, get a bunch of 12-year-olds cursing at you, you know what I mean? And versus in Rec Room, people could curse at each other, but they don't. There's like a positive energy around it. In the failed to render rooms, every once in a while you get somebody being a jerk and trying to be a troll, but it happened right at first and definitely trailed off. Like those people did, lost interest from getting booted immediately. And it becomes a space where you want to get together and act in that social contract, or dancing is another really interesting thing. Like most people wouldn't dance in real life, especially a bunch of, techie, developers and nerds and stuff. You'll walk into an after party at a conference or something, and it's a bunch of, awesome band and a bunch of people just like maybe recording with their phone, but they're, very rarely dancing versus, in VR, you see people start dancing and it just is infectious. Everybody starts nodding their head and swinging around and just being much more animated than they would in real life. You know what I mean? And I think that's pretty cool to see that kind of grow. But I do think that it has to do with the social kind of the purpose of the experience, like if it's an artistic experience or if it's, something like, VR chat where somebody made it with features that somewhat degrade your normal social contract, and so you don't have to abide by those social contracts. So I'm just going to go off the rails. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's kind of interesting. And GTA Online is very much the same way, where it's the theme of the space that you're in almost causes that either negative or positive interaction between the attendees.
Well, I'm going to chime in there and say it's all about the community. You have to build your community. One of the craziest things that I saw halfway through this adventure, getting failed to render comedy where it is I overheard 3 people talking in the corner, and they said, "Yeah, I heard that it's like a real comedy show and they're real comedians. So don't act up, man. They'll kick you. I don't want you to get kicked, bro." So it's kind of like the word of mouth and building a community has really put us where we are today.
You could also imagine a wearable device that measures people's unconscious mood and transmits that to the performer.
Wow.
Right? So you
could there you go. Now we're talking, everybody.
That's visionary.
In the same way that the adult industry almost always leads on technology, they're pretty far advanced on teledildonics now. So some of the hardware, obviously not the bits that touch your squishy parts, but some of the core technology of teledildonics is going to power these ways of measuring the audience's reaction, sort of subconsciously.
Yep. I think that would be a lot easier because I'm holding 2 Oculus Touch controllers. I can't applause. You know what I mean? Like, it's impossible. Like, I just can't do it. So I have to, there has to be some kind of way that we can get that translated.
Can I just take a moment and give props to Finn and his team at Waves for making really great interactive games for your attendees to bring them together, because it actually is great icebreakers. The games and the fun little toys that you give the poppers, that it honestly, it makes a big difference, and it does help to build community. So thank you and you guys are playful and fun with it. You came up with some great ideas, like the jacuzzi on the dance floor. Brilliant.
Yeah, I was involved from the beginning, working on that title, and since the team has grown amazing, raised a bunch of funds and just really expanded the team to some amazing developers. But some of the first things that we built in there were some of those existential social engagement pieces, like being able to pull out an experience. And it was this not quite a drug, but almost like, you know, it was an experience cube or a swirly ball that you'd pull out and hand to somebody. And then both just you and that one other person are encapsulated in a amorphic, you know, very transient space that you're dancing around with the music, and it's really cool. Or one of the things that we came up with early on, this was back in 2016, 2016, I guess. Yeah, 2016, 2015. Yeah, 2015 is whenever we started working on the wave. One of the first things that we did was for friending. You know, there was a couple other experiences that had launched, Altspace and Rec Room being a couple of the early players there. And, you know, there was a very small amount of features available just in any experience of social. So one of the things that we'd come up with was pulling a heart out of your menu. You pull up this little 3D menu of pop-ups. You could pull this little glowing heart out and hold it out for somebody. When they grab the heart, they burst into a bunch of little hearts, and that's how you friend somebody. So you kind of like offer it to them, they grab it, you become friends, and now you have this friend connection. And you know, doing that kind of that physical user interface, that's what VR is all about. And
it's a bond.
But there is a bit of that, as I see, reaching the mass market, right? Like Wave and Weekend just did a show last weekend with, I think, I forget the exact numbers, but there was something like 1.5 billion people viewed it, right? The non VR, the just streaming views, and, you know, a couple days later, views of people just absorbing this content, seeing the brand, seeing the, you know, being exposed to it. And that number is where I want to shoot for bringing an experience to, is because that number is just passive. But with the evolution of WebXR and A-Frame and other 3D web technologies that aren't even existing yet, there's a lot of stuff that, you know, hasn't been released, and a lot of stuff that just hasn't even been developed yet. And that's the stuff from next year and the following year that I'm always trying to pay attention to, but it's a moving target at this point, especially. And that's where we're going to be. The ability to, you know, see an event pop up on my Facebook or on my whatever social media platform will be the number one next year, and click on that link on TikTok or on Twitch and jump right into the space on whatever device I have and actually make a difference, actually be a 3D spectator, actually laugh with the comedians. I think that's where
there's always going to be a limit to the number of active users that you can have participating concurrently in an interactive scene, right?
Well, you know, I mean, kind of. I mean, it's really about the same. You know, if you think about all the code actually runs locally on your device, right? So I pull it in, now I'm just streaming the information in. Only a certain amount of people can interact in one room, and you instance those out, you know, and kind of break it out. You know, and I used to work with Richard Garriott for years, and he was like the first developer to create instances, you know, an MMO. The term MMO is his term, you know, and the term instances or shards was a term that evolved from basically the limitation of you could only have so many people in one room at the same time. And it was weird that, like, I want to go meet you at this one spot, and I'm on the phone with you, and you're at that one spot and I'm at that one spot, but we're not in the same instance. And that seemed to break the immersion. So he came up with a part of the story in Ultima Online that basically there was a universal crystal and it shattered, and you're all reflections in the crystal shards. And so now the term shards is actually like a server term for creating instances. And I think just like that, the evolution of story and agency around a technology and the limitations and the features, we're seeing that stuff grow too for virtual reality. We're seeing it exponentially grow even faster for this space, because we're approaching those kind of situations where in VR, it's actually, you're much slower for, you know, what you can do with UI. You can't just click on this, open this, click on this, click. So you're actually limited in the speed of user interface interactions. So we're seeing evolutions of that, you know, transcending from a UI touchscreen even in front of you, to actual physical objects you do something with. Like Kyle was saying, clinking bottles together is a social experience that you recognize from real life that you want in VR. It's the first thing you try to do whenever you pick up a bottle in VR. If you have somebody else in the bottle, you're like, hey, it's the first thing you try to do. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so typically whenever we go to build content and we watch other people play content, a big thing that we try to do is look for those things. Look for the things that people try to do but just don't exist yet, but it's what they try to do because that should happen in real life. Mm-hmm. And when that doesn't happen, they're like, oh. But when it does happen and they didn't know it happened, like if you go to clink a bottle together and it bling, cheers popped up right above it or something, you go, whoa, that's really cool. And so like maybe not that excited, but I think that's where we're going with this, is that the tools evolve to the necessities of the verticals, and we're finding new verticals that we've never experienced. Like Trisha is working in this space after quite the career of physical events, and hosting CES and these large, huge events, moving to a virtual space where there's a completely different vertical of needs, and then those needs for the brand partner or for the comedian or for the performer, those become the paramount requirements of the experience,
right.
What the needs are.
And I think
bringing the beer, putting the beer in the real world, getting your kit, getting your meal, getting everything ready around your surroundings, and then getting on your headset or your computer at the same time with someone else. So planning like the home experience is kind of where we're trying to connect with all the brands and just build the atmosphere too, because this isn't going to stop. And I'm super excited for everything that's to come.
Trisha, we talk a lot about making sure that we capture like those natural, realistic things that we want to do. We kind of want it to feel like a comedy club if we're at the comedy club, but at the same time, to Finn's point, if you can have the opportunity to like hold your heart out for someone and have them friend you instead of just being like click friend, then you want to capitalize on those opportunities. But
creativity.
Right. But there's always like technical limitations. Again, when you start to talk about things like instances and stuff like that. Trisha, how can we find a balance between realistic experience, creative approach, technical performance, and freedom of expression when building these things?
I think it just takes time, and we just got to keep doing it. And, the more you do, and he just told us about the hearts and, thinking about the home life and what you're going through and how you want to connect, inviting more people to these spaces. And I learned from other people. Like, I didn't know how to dance when I first started, but someone taught me how to dance. So like all these upgrades too, and these new features. So now we all start to catch on and teach one another. And like you said, building your community so that like you guys, this is what we want. This is how we want our brand and our comedy club or our festival or our tailgate. And kind of just start building around it and trying to connect your community.
It's funny. MMOs have been doing this for a while. MMOs have been, moderating and adding water and fertilizer to their communities to keep the agency, to keep the involvement, to keep that kind of communal movement towards user-generated content, if it's that kind of MMO, or just to keep the guilds involved, And so I think a lot of those large companies that have done successful massively multiplayer games are going to shift into this space as well, because it makes sense to them. They have the community managers and the pipeline in place to manage the community, But just listening to you talk about the hearts again made me realize like there's no virtual equivalent to like denying somebody's friend request. You gotta like rip their heart in two or something.
By the way, Trisha, you mentioned a tailgate.
Connection. What's that?
Said you mentioned a tailgate, and I had heard rumors that you were involved in something that sports fans might be into.
Well, everything in the real world, everything we're doing in the real world is going to eventually get to the virtual world. So I just happened to COVID hit when I was thinking about football season. Mm-hmm. And we're getting a new team, and I have a studio behind the stadium in Vegas. So our mind went to virtual tailgate immediately when all this started. But so just thinking about all the brands and the experience, how to bring people together to celebrate football. So we started focusing on kind of being in the parking lot and near your car and how that could look with a performance and drinking beer and eating food and learning from chefs and who went all through all these things. So yeah, keep your eyes out for what's to come.
That's exciting.
Well, you can imagine as a content developer, the approach of building that content out is so interesting, because it's gamified interactions of a real social interaction, but it's not something that, you know, we would normally have built before, right? Like, why would we normally build a tailgating space with, you know, the perfect space for a virtual tailgate? That never even came up until this new era of, you know, because of the pandemic and the loss of our public sporting events. There's never been a need for what there's a huge need for now. So that's interesting. And all these different verticals that are becoming apparent, that just there wasn't even there was no business there before that would make sense to build that for. But now it writes itself. It's obvious that this is what needs to happen, because people are searching for that. You know, people want this year to go tailgating, but how many people are going to, especially how many, you know, elderly people are going to, because they're concerned about, you know, getting sick, you know, and so because of the media's, you know, push on being sick, I think more and more people are adopting the desire to attend things virtually, set up their job to be virtual, have their kids, you know, virtually schooled from home, and not even whenever their surrounding area goes back up to play. I think they're going to continue adopting some of these virtual connections because just for many reasons. One is, you know, because that's their way of life now, that's what they want to do, you know, and I think as a content developer, we see those, it always comes back to like what the verticals are because of the requirements, right? And
well, and Kyle, you did that. Like, you saw a vacancy and there was a need. I mean, you had friends who were performers who were now out of work, and congratulations, you just incorporated Fail to Render Comedy Club. Like, it's a legitimate business.
It is, yeah. It feels a little bit unreal. We just had Alfred Robles, who opens up for Gabriel Iglesias on our show, and he's now a new permanent part of our show. So that's really exciting for us to have him aboard. But I mean, I initially started because there was just a void, and I have a lot of stand-up comedians that don't even want to go back out there. And like Finn said, when people start going back to normal and things go back to normal, you're still going to have those people that don't want to get on an airplane. They don't want to dress up. They want to bring their own beer. They want to do everything. And on Trisha's point, you were talking about setting the mood. And after hosting these events for almost 20 weeks now, at the beginning, I'm like, hey, pop your beers. I drop my controllers. I pop a beer. I hear beers popping. Sometimes I put myself on microphone and just pop a beer, you know, just to give the room a little aesthetic. Like, oh man, people are hanging out. It's a bar. And at the end of the night, sometimes people come up to me like, you were so cool. You were so blah, and they start throwing up the VR. So it's just one of the most amazing things. Like, whoa, did you really? Yeah, I'll be right back. Like, whoa, man.
In my last party in Wave, and the one coming up on Thursday, I put a bar with fake cocktails, and I had celebrity robot and alien bartenders.
That's awesome.
For every scene of the Wave. So
I've been so impressed with the spaces the team is building out. I mean, it's just absolutely phenomenal, mind-blowing spaces.
Amazing.
But you know, Kyle was mentioning, you know, that the other comedians. That was one of the things that Alex, you had brought up earlier, and made me think about one of the sets that I remembered Al speaking about. He just kind of opened up, was talking about when all of this hit, you know, and he's a professional entertainer, you know, he's a traveling comedian, does well, Comedy Central, you know, strong comedian, hilarious content, working as many nights as he wants to, kind of comedian, you know, and there's a lot of performers, musicians, guitarists, singers, drummers, you know, all these people that are they're performers, and Broadway is another one that listening to him speak about it, he said, you know, I all this happened and Kyle reached out to me, told me that there's this event. I went out and you know, was able to get my hands on a VR headset to do this event. I jumped into it, did a set in VR, and I realized that I had been extremely missing this in my life for the last 2 months. This is somebody that had gone around and performing for people live over and over, daily, weekly, just for years, and all of a sudden is not, not getting that social that energy from the crowd anymore, and to speak, to be able to speak in public. And have the laughter and have that positive energy come back to him. He said it was extremely therapeutic. He didn't realize how much he had actually been missing it. And whenever it was my first time to do a stand-up show there in Fail to Render, I actually had that same kind of, slight butterfly. Oh man, I'm about to get up in front of a crowd feeling. I had that same sensation of much like performing in the wave. And you end up with that same psychological response that you feel when you're about to get up in public in real life.
The butterflies.
Yeah, there's
75% butterflies.
It's great. You know what I mean? It really is a social experience.
And who he's talking about is my other partner, Big Al Gonzalez, who's been in the industry for 20 years. And recently, all he's been doing, he does every show with me. And what he's been doing is going on real stages with his VR headset on as his opener. And the entire audience is just losing their mind. They're like, what are you doing? And after every single show, we get more and more subscribers. More and more people are saying, I got 3 friends that went out and bought a $400 headset just to go to a show. I'm like, that's a $400 ticket. I mean, I guess you're going to get a lot of shows out of it.
Yeah.
I paid that much for Metallica last year.
There you go.
Ollie, I'm interested in hearing from you. How realistic is it for someone to make a living performing in some of these virtual events right now?
Yeah, I mean, we're still figuring that out. Apart from the superstar DJs who are obviously making good money out of it. There's not an easy way for entry level artists yet to make money, but all of the events that we've got in our pipeline at the moment are brand sponsored. So rather than having to charge audiences tickets when we're competing for their attention with so many free options for entertainment, free or very cheap. We're finding that by getting brands to front up with the money, we're able to pay the performers and all of the artists and technicians involved in putting on the event. And so I think that's how the business model is going to work for the foreseeable future. Because apart from Tomorrowland, which obviously sort of broke all kinds of records by having people pay for tickets to attend the virtual event, it's a pretty hard ask for most people to buy a ticket to a virtual event.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't prevent the artists from making a living from it necessarily.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Kyle, are you guys able to pay performers when they come on your show?
Absolutely. Every Saturday is a paid show. We pay all of our comedians every Saturday, doing about 15 minutes. We pay them about $25. And honestly, that's a lot more than some real life venues pay. They have to pay for gas. They have to wait 2 hours to go up and do 10 minutes. And they sit in there with us for about 10 minutes, go up for 15. Here's your $25, man. Thanks. See you next time. And then on Thursdays, we have our new open mic showcase for people that have never done VR comedy. And then the winner of that night will get $25. So we make it a little bit of a contest on Thursdays.
I would like to touch on the subject a little bit on how music has become devalued in our society and why aren't people willing to pay to come into a concert, for instance. So I've spent 7 months building environments and I work every day and I am not making any money doing this. I know it's kind of like a more beta and it's starting out, but I also want to bring up the fact that music has been devalued, and I wonder how we can get things back on track as a community in the entertainment industry. And people are still willing to pay 20, 30, 40 bucks to come into a world-class nightclub. Why shouldn't they have to or be willing to pay to come to a virtual reality nightclub? Like a reduced rate, of course, like $10 or
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think they will. It's hard to put a price tag on cool, right? If as you're building your community, and MMOs have seen this, that's why all these MMOs are free to play, right? And you can basically jump in for free, and then it costs you to play. You know what I mean? And so I think there needs to be the definitely the free community building platform that then, you know, evolves the community to enough people to where they're lining up for the shows. When you get people lining up for shows is basically when you can start charging the people to be first, right? And I think that's the key, is that if you want, you know, if you do that too early, though, people will just say, that's cool, I don't need to go to the show. I haven't been going in the past, so I won't go in the future. But if I think there's a roadmap or a runway there that has to be traveled and for this to take off, you know, and Wave has seen this, other multiplayer platforms have seen this, Rec Room, VR Chat, basically any of them that are highly successful are free and haven't monetized still to this day. The ones that have monetized, I wouldn't say are even, you know, typically in the MMO, for instance, an MMO searches to monetize on 1% of their player base. If they can hit 1%, they made a lot of money. Is the idea behind making a successful MMO. That's crazy. 1% you're trying to monetize off of. So, and that's the kind of the existing, you know, of 20 some odd years of multiplayer games that have evolved into the understanding and metrics of what it takes to actually make good money in this space. You can only really expect to monetize off of 1% of your actual target audience. So it's not just everybody you're playing that's playing your experience, but 1% of your target audience. So when you start breaking those numbers down, if you only have 1,000 people, then you're only going to be able to monetize off of 100 people. So basically, a lot of these MMOs, they have a player count number that they're shooting to get to, because at 1% of that number, they're successful. And so that's typically how, when you're planning these big platforms, I think MMOs have always had to do that, and they do that early on. They measure the litness of the communities and what the player base is going to be doing, and that's why you've seen a lot of MMOs. They start being developed, and then they can them, because enough metrics comes in that says, hey, you know what, you're not going to hit these numbers even at free to play to make your money back, so kill it now. And these big companies, they're able to run those numbers with target groups and be able to see engagement. And so I think it has to do with that organic engagement of your community. How many times do they keep coming back? That's why I'm extremely excited about Failed to Renders, because like, I'm seeing people coming back, waiting in line, being very excited to attend. Also with Wave, you know, the actual physical VR, the interactive VR experience, you know, is something that people yearn for, right? They want to be in there. They're like Kyle said, they're purchasing headsets just to do this social experience, you know, because people are missing that. So I think we just have to keep on that, letting that grow, right? We're still very early, but I think coming back to the cross-platform virtual experience, that's how we just have to be, because if we want it to be 1% of the people experience, we need everybody to experience it, not, you know, 20% experience it, 80% watch the stream. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We need everybody having the opportunity to get in and have that desire to either want to donate to this awesome cause or to buy a ticket to the upcoming show and be first to, you know, the 100 people that are going to be in the instance with the artist. Like that I can see where that's going to start being of value, is because you're going to have thousands of people logged in and only 100 people can actually be in the space that the artist interacts with or something, the VIP room, you know, an after party with Skrillex or something, you know, and those kind of things.
The marketing that you put into it, when you have all these options of what to attend, and then having a big name or a talent is definitely easier to get people in.
And that's definitely, like, working with Trisha opened my eyes on a lot of what she's been working in events and with games, you know, interactive game festivals and stuff. She knows that's part of the game industry. You know, and a lot of times we forget that that's a very important part of the game industry, are the people that don't even develop games, but they're the people that work in the marketing or the event space around these big conferences. And, you know, working with Trisha, where that money comes from is not a space that me as a content developer, that it's not in my clientele. They're not part of my clientele, and they're part of Trisha's clientele. And that kind of business that she runs as an event company is, I think, crucial. That, like, basically the way she does business is crucial to how people in this space get paid, right? And
Can
but at the same time, I mean, what we're seeing with Kyle, that's a completely new thing. It never existed before. So
go ahead.
Could I throw a question out to the group? So what would you think if the VR community now started associating cryptocurrency and blockchain with events to kind of start a new alternative currency in relation to coming to events, pay in Bitcoin? Like,
I actually I thought about cryptocurrency when you were telling me about the lack of value in the music industry and how that maybe in the future, if you can attach something like blockchain to a purchase of a digital album, then you'll have something that retains value, and I think when it comes to music specifically, when it's just become so available and so easy to obtain without having to purchase anything, that you need to find a way to retain the value in order for people to be willing to open their wallets for it. And I think blockchain is a really great way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would be interesting. There are a number of blockchain solutions for content development where you can basically create assets and have the user-generated social space where people live in, and they keep on creating new assets, right? Like, for instance, you're a performer in this space, you want to cut 10,000 tickets, right? Those are new assets that didn't exist before because they're tickets to your new concert. They have your name on the top of the ticket, and there's only 10,000 of them. You cut those things, and they all have a blockchain ID to them. And so, therefore, even if they're free right at the beginning, the algorithm that solves that blockchain and then delivers the blockchain ID to that's the only version of that ticket, and it becomes the concert T-shirt or the ticket stub of the event you went to last year, and you start growing this sash of merit badges, if you will. You know what I mean? And so that's really interesting. That's really interesting to think of kind of the growth. Plus, it allows, like Trisha was saying, or like you were saying earlier, the marketing companies, the alcohol distributors, the large brands to say, how am I going to invest in this space? Right. It's really hard for them to say, as we've seen, to say, yes, let me invest in this space that doesn't exist yet. But that's, as a content developer, oftentimes what you have to do is like get people to invest in the space that doesn't exist yet so you can build it.
I mean, it's happening in hotels, that are being built, that are trying to sell the hotel that's not built yet too. So the real world has the same issue.
And without going too far off topic, there is a program called Somnium Space that does have blockchain integration into virtual assets that you can design, plug in there. You can buy a plot of land that belongs to you. You can build your own house that retains value, sell it to someone later. Somnium Space is actually making
Second Life.
Yeah. Check out Somnium Space if you're into that crypto blockchain kind of retention thing. They are actually, I think, making some moves on that front.
There's another one that's really cool called Merits. Not to continue going
right.
off topic,
I know
the Merits is really cool.
I just heard about that this morning on one of my esports calls.
It's a developer here in Austin, and it's really interesting. They're kind of doing similar to what you were just talking about, Alex, but also incorporating fitness and usage of your, like, basically your actions, your actual fitness, your movement outside in the real world, your actual get up and go as earnings. Mm-hmm. So you earn through fitness. And so they're also incorporating with a bunch of games so that basically the games microtransactions can be unlocked with the currency from merits. So these merits coins can basically be used as the dollar microtransaction in the kids' game. So the parents can say, well, if you want to play the game, go run around the block, and then you'll earn a lot of coins then. So I think that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
And speaking of microtransactions, of course, merchandise, or Virch, as they call it in virtual events, is another revenue stream that we can start tapping into more as people want to spend more time in these virtual spaces. Then how their avatar looks and sort of having these limited edition clothing items to clothe their avatars in will start to also gain more value.
Exclusive items are as a consumer, I will tell you right now, exclusive items get me to open my wallet. If I know that next week I will never be able to get that t-shirt for my avatar again, I am buying that thing. Like That's free straight from the consumer. I am someone who spends money on stuff, make it exclusive, and it will drive the attention to it. I wanted to kind of bring it back a little bit and kind of talk about, I wanted to comment, I guess, on something. When I went to the Failed to Render comedy show, it was free, and they were talking about the idea of maybe charging $1 or $2 as an entry fee, not as a means of like, hey, this is how we're going to make our money, but as a means of like filtering the community and bringing in quality people who are there to enjoy that experience. You know, not just people who have nothing better to do than troll this comedy club that they saw in Altspace. You know, and myself personally, like as a fan of somebody, as a fan of cheeseburgers, I would rather spend $15 on a cheeseburger than $1 on a cheeseburger any day of the week, because I understand that the $15 cheeseburger has put a lot of time and energy into making the best damn cheeseburger they could, where the $1 cheeseburger was just pumped out and cranked and, you know, obviously did not have me in mind. So I think as a consumer and someone who and as people continue to invest time in the experiences, because time is money, they'll be willing to pay a couple of extra bucks to ensure that their experience is going to be top quality and free of any BS.
It's interesting, you know, going back to the MMO kind of school of thought, right? On MMO content development, you give that same opportunity for your player base. You have the people that just want to come in, and you have to make it free to walk in, right? Because otherwise, you know, if it's not free, you won't have those thousands of users. Then you give them the place for people like yourself to say, I'm a $15, look at my hat.
Right.
Like I paid $15, I'm VIP. Right, I got a star on I'm a star-bellied sneech, right? And so, like the other side is like, say you have $1 or $2, there's still value there, because what I see, like what Kyle was saying, is like, imagine, you know, take for instance your phone. Think of the experiences that you've downloaded only because they're free, and they might have gotten some of your time. But think of the experiences that you went ahead and paid $1 for, right? The Monument Valley on your phone, the Angry Birds full version. You play that, you live in it, you play through it, you've spent money on it, so you're going to get your money value out of it. And so I see that there's also a value in that entry level kind of $1, $2 thing, or maybe a recurring, you know, $1 and $1, or just come in at $15 and you got a lifetime membership or something like that, right?
So because we don't have our own program yet, which we're working on regarding Altspace, what I've been doing on Saturday nights to really give everybody that vibe is we've been closing the doors. Yeah. Once we hit maximum capacity, we close the doors and nobody else can come in. So we tell the audience, this is VIP now. Nobody else can come in here. And then it feels like a real comedy club because you got locked in. If you leave, you can't come back. And then at the end of the show, after they've had amazing time, an hour and a half later, we say, we take donations. And every time we do close the doors at the end of the show, we take donations. One of our biggest nights was $500. We made $500 and gave it to all the comedians, you know?
And that's another instance of the technology going in a different direction than it ever would have been feasible before this new era that we're living in. You know, as a content developer, I've never had a client or a partner ever say like, can we limit the amount of people in this social experience? You know, it's always, no, can we make it endless? How do we grow it? How do we have 300,000 people attend to this and have it, you know, all work, you know, smoothly, versus let's treat it like a real physical space and limit the amount of attendance. There's never been a purpose to limit your people. You've always just instanced them and made it more because you want exponentially more, you know? So this is a good example of what VIP does to this new era of, you know, virtual social engagement.
And I'm sure you know, Finn, because you've been there. Alex, you've been there. Celeste, I'm sure you kind of feel it too. But when there are too many avatars and there's too much rendering and we can't control everybody's at-home internet, there's going to be lag. And I literally named it failed render for two reasons. One, it's obviously my last name. Two,
he's failing to render. Oh my God, that is
I just
perfect.
got that now.
Look at his face.
Dude, that is so perfect. Like we couldn't have scripted this.
Jesus. Yeah. Well, and legit. I mean, he's got fiber. He's on fiber right now. So there you go. You cannot you cannot dictate what happens in this space.
Kyle failed to render.
He really did.
He failed to render.
Ollie,
This has
Ollie,
got
do
to
you
be
have-
a joke.
I
This
know,
is
right?
man.
I know.
I'm pretty sure it's staged.
Yeah, Ollie, what do you have here for us as a contribution to these perspectives?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that exclusivity is something that people are going to be willing to pay for. Having these sort of one-on-one interactions with celebrities. You know, I heard of people paying $5,000 a ticket for a Bon Jovi concert recently, which was a small, intimate venue where you got to actually be in the room with Bon Jovi. So these kind of things, I think, are on the one hand, it's a great way to monetize, and on another hand, it goes against the grain of our core belief of radical inclusivity and accessibility to all. So, with the Lost Horizon event, certainly we're not going to be going down that kind of VIP exclusive route, but we definitely want to encourage people to pay donations, not only to the charities that we are supporting, but also to help cover the costs of putting on the event. We also think there's a subscription model possibility where people who are, who like the event, who like the community of people that attend the event, would be willing to pay a membership fee to become to always be able to attend these events.
Wow.
And you're back.
Hey, welcome back.
Let me tell you something. I just started talking about lag. I just started talking about it. I named it Fail to Render because it's my last name, but also everyone's lagging. No one's in control of their at-home internet. One of our biggest comedians, during halfway through his set, the power went out in California because of the heat waves and the fire-nados. And yeah, the blackouts. So lag has turned into like a new heckler that all the comedians, I'm like, hey guys, when you get on there, you're going to lag. You may drop out, just make the best of it. And I thought it was so funny. As soon as I started talking about lag, everybody froze.
It was perfect. Like, we couldn't have scripted that, dude. You were like number one.
I think you're playing with his IP settings or something while he's talking.
It was too good. I can't wait to clip it. All right. Well, we should probably start to wrap this up. We've been going for a minute, but I would love to get some thoughts from everybody before we do. Celeste, do you have any closing thoughts? What are you thinking about as we start to wrap up this conversation?
Yeah, actually, okay, so something I want to bring up, and I think it's what makes virtual reality really fun in conjunction with the awesome visuals and the music, is the community. And also, I think that some of the developers and creators would behoove themselves to work with a diverse team, and when I say diversity, I mean, yes, diversity in your staff, but also consult, have roundtable with artists, with even psychologists, with people that can help you to understand human psychology and how VR can actually benefit humanity, instead of just being this is fun and it's a money-making tool, but this is a way that millions of people are going to come together. It's going to really, we all know that it's bridging us in ways that we can, that are just starting, and it's going to be incredible. I think empathy is a word that has come up in philosophical discussions that my community and I have been having about VR. How can we increase empathy and keep people feeling that human connection? And I also think that one way to do that is games and keeping our interactive experiences fun and playful, because that's what kind of brings people together and makes it really fun. And I know the comedy really does that, and concerts and music in general, but fun games that we can play, and toys and things. I don't know. It's just a thought, but yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you entirely. Right now, my favorite social app is Real VR Fishing, because you have something to do while you're there communicating. So I hear you loud and clear, and I think that is very well put. Ollie, what do you have for us in closing?
Yeah, I think another aspect, and something that it sort of gets back to one of your earlier questions, Alex, about how to strike that right balance between creativity and sort of freedom of expression and sort of high quality of visuals, is one of the things that a lot of these platforms are doing well, is opening them up and democratizing the content creation process and making, user generated content a core part of the business plan and of the sort of technical roadmap as well. Because that's really how things get pushed forward, is not by a bunch of VC funded, companies making their own sort of decisions on what is the best sort of use of the technology, or the best the sort of the aesthetic that should be adopted, or the culture that should be adhered to, but is by allowing as many people as possible the opportunity to create their own content, to create their own worlds, to create their own communities. I think that's what the real strength of this is.
I love it. That's great. Kyle Render, what do you have for us, my friend?
I don't know. I'm not lagging right now, so that's good. I mean, I just want to say Thursdays nights, 9 o'clock Central, 7 Pacific. We have our new case showcase on that night. 9 o'clock on Saturdays is our big headliner night where we close the night. 80 people come in there. We stream it on Facebook, YouTube, Field to Render Comedy. I'm investing a lot of time and energy into this. I have at least 4 interns already. And our company is 4 people deep, and we have a couple employees too. So we're taking off really quick. It takes a team, it takes an army to accomplish what we've done, and I'm really proud of everybody I'm working with.
I love it. And we're excited for you, and you know that I'm going to be watching. Finn, what do you have for us in closing, my friend?
Well, thanks for inviting me for one, and I wanted to give Ollie props for awesome experience there. Looking forward to more on that platform.
Thank you.
And as a content developer, I yearn to keep working on this stuff. It's fun. It's fun for me. It's fun to think about this kind of stuff, and some of the stuff that Celeste was saying about working with other diverse people is important. With games, it's important because you get a well-rounded theory of fun, and you find loopholes that you weren't maybe expecting. But in business, and as business is evolving rapidly, more rapidly than we have ever experienced, it's very important to go outside your bubble into a new clientele, speak with people like working with Trisha has opened up different avenues of development for this virtual space, right? And things are going to continue in that. I also do have a game launching in 2 days, which I would love to give a little shout out to. It's a Shadow of Valhalla. Bam.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bam. It's all backwards. There you go. Shadow of Valhalla.
Wow.
Yeah, we been making this game during the pandemic. Actually, it's a Viking combat game, super bloody, very violent, but it's launching on Steam in 2 days. So
well,
good job.
I look forward to finding a key in my email very soon.
You got it. And anybody else too? We're playing. We love the community, working with the community, and want to hear the community feedback. And so we have a Discord, as well as we're giving away some custom VR content or headsets, hardware, Alienware computers, Valve Index, and a custom Oculus Quest. So at chickenwaffle.com, we're giving away all kinds of stuff.
Dang.
For free.
I'll be there.
Chicken waffle.
I'll
be there for that. Trisha, bring us home. What do you have for us in closing?
Thankful to be on here with you guys. I've seen your work. I continue to watch you guys, and I know there's tough times right now, but I think we're all headed in the right direction, and it's exciting, and there's going to be a lot more in the VR space to come, and I hope more brands get involved with us, and we can just grow and definitely learn how to connect on a deeper, more meaningful human level at the same time as just have fun. So
Absolutely.
Well, I think
And make some money.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page.
Money's important.
I think we're all on the same page. Well, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for joining me. This is going to conclude the second episode of the Dreamland XR Digital Speaker Series. Kyle, Finn, Ollie, Celeste, Trisha, thank you all so much for joining me. It's been an
Thank you,
absolute
Alex.
pleasure and
Thank
honor.
you, Alex.
Of course.
Thanks for having us, Alex.
Absolutely. Yep. Again,
Alex.
I'm Alex Milland, the host and moderator for this show. Thank you again for joining us. Please like the video if you've stuck around this long and you've enjoyed this conversation. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below, and we will see you next week for episode 3. Take care, everyone. Have a good day. We'll see you next time.
Hey, guys.